Hi everyone, I'm James Forrester. Sam is not quite here yet, but I wanted to quickly talk about MediaWiki 1.39, which is coming very soon. So the first thing is, oh, right, it might not allow multiple presenters. In that case, I'll just get on with it. So 1.39. So the first thing to say is, oh look, we've got a nice new logo. Observe the nice shiny logo of MediaWiki. It's coming. It's big. It's an SVG of Doom or whatever, but anyway. So who are we and why are we talking to you about MediaWiki 1.39? Well, that's me on the left. I'm James. I've been a user of MediaWiki since 2002. I first wrote code for MediaWiki itself in 2004, and I've been staff since 2012. My day job is actually working as the lead engineer for the abstract Wikipedia team, which is kind of fun. But I actually spend a fair bit of my time, not really my work time, but my time working on MediaWiki releases, as does Sam. Sam, should I speak for you or can you join? I will assume Sam can't. Oh.
Wait a minute, I have to... Yeah, sorry, I have to add him.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. The magic of technology.
So he's going to be around.
Excellent.
I think we can hear Sam as well.
Test Sam.
There we go. I think I'm here.
Brilliant. Hello, Sam.
Hello. So I'm introducing myself. So I'm Sam Reed, or many of you will know as Ruby. I am a security engineer currently at the foundation, but for reasons, I'm one of the people that's sort of primarily involved in MediaWiki releases, early releases and major releases. And especially, I guess, a release manager of sorts. As James said, I've been around a while and developing for a while and know a lot about lots of things.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. So the first thing I wanted to say was a little note about MediaWiki's release process. So the first thing to say is that the word process implies a lot of formality, and that doesn't really actually happen in practice. MediaWiki as a product doesn't have a product owner. There's no one person or central authority that says this is MediaWiki, this is not MediaWiki, these are the users MediaWiki is built for, these are not the users MediaWiki is built for. So people write patches and suggest changes and so on and so forth, and groups like the MediaWiki stakeholders group lobby for changes to happen. And certainly I hope this will improve over time. But in particular, Sam and I do mainline releases of MediaWiki essentially in our volunteer capacity, which is extra fun when we get to talk about, hey, I need to cancel a work meeting so that I can get the release out the door, things like that. So the process for MediaWiki releases is that at the Wikimedia Foundation, we run essentially the development alphas of MediaWiki. They get cut currently every week, or sometimes more often or less often. And then a stable release of MediaWiki is cut every 6 months or so, and that's intended for use by third parties. One of those third parties is in fact ourselves in the finance team. The fundraising team want to use more stable software for sensible reasons. Individual releases get individual stable releases get security support releases from Sam and his colleagues for a year. And then those security releases come out quarterly, both for core itself and extensions on a best efforts basis. Then on top of that, there are LTS releases. So every fourth stable release, so in practice, every 2 years, the release is a long-term support release. These are supported with security fixes for 3 years. And these are staggered so that those 3 years overlap each other by 2 years, which means you have a year of support during which you switch. These are the most interesting releases for people using MediaWiki seriously. And I believe Semantic MediaWiki is generally built against these. So MediaWiki 1.39 is 2 years since MediaWiki 1.35. It will be the next LTS release. It's coming in November, and looking at the clock, that's 5 or 6 days away, so I guess we'd better get it released. This will be a long-term support release, and so its end of life will be in November 2025. And it's astonishing that we're already talking about 2025. I still think 2020 is in the future. So this will replace MediaWiki 1.39 LTS, and that itself will go end of life in November 2023. So what's new? Why should you care, other than the fact that, you know, ideally you want to switch to software that's used with more security updates? So there have been lots of really minor improvements, right? As I mentioned, we've got a new MediaWiki logo. This will show up on your pages in the Powered by MediaWiki icon, alongside other icons that you might have. So the old sunflower now has one that's all neon and cool and 90s, 80s retro throwback or something. There was a vote for that. So if you like it, congratulations. If you don't, oh, sorry. There are some interesting things in particular that I picked out from the changes since 1.35. There's experimental farm support in the configuration for sysadmins. So farms are where you have multiple wikis on the same host, but configured in different ways. So Wikimedia production is a farm, as is fandom much more significantly with thousands and thousands of wikis. This is an experimental feature. I would not recommend rushing into it immediately, but people working on this, and so that might be interesting. We added JPEG 2000. Other media types are available. Experimental form. Yes, I don't know exactly how experimental it was. I noticed it going in. I saw people very excited about it, and I saw that all the features have the word experimental against them. So I imagine what that means is it's not guaranteed to work in all situations, and if you run into some bugs, please feed that back so they can fix it. But it may, you shouldn't necessarily just assume it as a drop-in perfect replacement for anything you're currently using. So JPEG 2000 is a new image format. They get added, and things get, you know, improved over time. And as I said, you know, 30 new languages. So those are all the language codes we added. I imagine if you're already successfully using MediaWiki, the new languages aren't necessarily beneficial, but if there are situations where it wasn't quite working for you, now you have that. More significantly, 2 new extensions and 1 new skin are bundled by default with MediaWiki. So these are Abuse Filter and Math and Minerva. Abuse Filter is an anti-abuse feature, which is very useful, and I believe that integrates reasonably well with Semantic MediaWiki. The Math extension, or Maths for those of us who can speak proper English, takes user LaTeX input and renders it in MathML or SVG. And those are rendered on Wikimedia's servers by default. So it's possible to run your own Mathoid service. So if you want to do that for network isolation purposes or for security reasons, just for running your own thing, that's totally doable. But by default, it will call out to Wikimedia services. And then Minerva is a lightweight skin, but you're probably using a different skin. So what's gone since 1.35, which is always the more concerning changes, right? So there have been lots and lots and lots of changes that have been made. There are 2 ones I wanted to pull out in particular. So there's a user-facing feature called auto number headings, and that was killed in 1.36, I think, for performance reasons. So there was a consultation that is related to the work that Scott talked about with the parser varying based on user preferences. And we're trying to remove those as much as possible so that you know, performance is much better. And that applies particularly for MediaWiki and other large installations, so Wikimedia and other large installations, but it also applies for other users. So anyway, that's done. And the pre-MediaWiki 1.24 API authorization system was also dropped. So if you have an integration, a bot, a script, something that's calling through the API, the action API specifically, that will need to change. And those are going to be potentially painful if you haven't upgraded your bots or whatever in 10 years. And then there are going to be hundreds of minor changes. As always, people improve things, drop features, make breaking changes. Ideally, those should all be flagged in the release notes, which are shipped with MediaWiki, but there may be other things. A really big change that we landed in 139 is that we changed our backwards support policy to only allow MediaWiki to upgrade from 1 or 2 LTSs ago, or in between release of MediaWiki. So what that means is that if your wiki is running 129 or 130, MediaWiki 139 will say, this wiki is too old for us to directly upgrade. Please first upgrade to something newer than that, and then upgrade all the way to 139. And so you can upgrade in stages. This is mostly done so that we can actually realistically test all of the upgrade paths, as opposed to wave our hands and say, oh yeah, no, we support upgrades from MediaWiki 1.2, but we have no idea whether or not it works. So if you have a very old wiki and you're upgrading, this will be a little bit more involved this time, but should be more reliable because of that. And then another thing that we changed is we changed the environmental requirements. So these change relatively rarely, but we changed a few things for 139. So 139 requires PHP 7.4 up from 7.3. PHP 7.3 went end of life at the end of 2021, so last year. 7.4 itself goes end of life at 2022, although Debian does provide extended support, and we at Wikimedia ourselves only just switched to 7.4, although we're now already working on 8.1 support. PHP 8.0 is not actually confirmed as working in any of the release branches yet. We believe it's working fully in the development branch, but we're not running that in production, so we haven't finally fully tested it. We're running it in CI though. And we plan to backport support for PHP 8 if there are any changes we need to make to 139 and 138 for that matter. So if you want to run MediaWiki on PHP 8.0, there are people out there who are running real production wikis in that circumstance, but we can't actually certify that everything works perfectly. Oh, and we also require the INTL, or internationalization PHP extension. There were a bunch of very hairy bits of code in MediaWiki that worked around it and re-implemented it, and we just said, no, this is ridiculous, this is a standard extension. We also increased database support requirements. So MariaDB inched up from 10.1 to 10.3, MySQL from 5.5.8 to 5.7.0, Postgres from 9.4 to 10, and SQLite didn't change, although I doubt people outside of tests are running serious wikis on SQLite. And browser support. So browser support theoretically hasn't changed very much, because we've always said for the big 2 browsers of Chrome and Firefox that we're the last 2, which is a moving target. In practice, the last 2 in MediaWiki 135 and the last 2 in MediaWiki 139 are very different last 2s. Chrome is now 3 digits long in its version number. The big change in practice is that IE 8, 9, and 10 used to get non.js support, and now we don't give non.js tested support for very old Internet Explorer versions, although no one should be using that in practice, but people are in situations where they can't upgrade, and we appreciate that. And so finally, so what's to come later? After 139, what's the glorious sunny uplands? Well, you've actually already heard from my colleagues in the API part of the platform team and from Scott in the content transform team, but here are those anyway. So the one parsoid stuff, the API consolidation work they talked about, the vector skin. If you're browsing different production Wikipedias, you may have noticed that some wikis now have a different version of vector. Technically, it's a separate skin called Vector 2022, which is modernized, simplified, and is a much more scalable skin. We are moving towards Vue.js use for our user interfaces. There's currently a consultation underway about doing server-side rendering for that, which might be something people here have a view on. And who knows, at some point, we might actually have MediaWiki 2.0, but that's just, nonsense, clearly. So in summary, MediaWiki 139 is coming very soon. migration from 1.35, if you're using that, should be doable. And both Sam and I would be really interested to hear if you have any concerns. So please shout. Yes, I see big thumbs up for MediaWiki 2.0, but I would say, you know, if we actually pretend like we're following semantic versioning, then we'll have a breaking release of MediaWiki every couple of hours in the current development model. So that's something we'll have to think quite carefully about. Anyway, thank you. Thank you all. Any questions?
Thank you, James. Any questions?
So Wolfgang, you asked for a Docker image. So we don't build Docker images currently as part of the release process. I filed the task saying we probably should, but that is currently done by a separate group, also of volunteers, the MediaWiki Docker images that people often use. I think that's a good thing to think about, and I think that would probably make it a lot easier for people to test, especially test in a disposable way that Docker encourages. And on packaging discussion tools by default or shipping it with outside wikis, I don't know about that. I can ask the editing team. I know that there's a lot of interest in that. So hopefully that will answer that question, but not immediately, I'm afraid.
Hey, James, this is Jeffrey. I was asking
Hey.
a question about your mention of experimental wiki farms. So I know this is like a big question, but was just curious to hear. Sorry, I'm extremely jet lagged right now. Basically, would the experimental wiki farm support look like how the Wikimedia Foundation currently structures wiki farms? Because there's a million ways to make a wiki farm, or at least to induce one right now with MediaWiki. So I'm curious to see what that structure looks like, if you can give more detail into it. If not, that's it.
So I actually haven't played with this feature very much. I believe it's actually quite different from how Wikimedia's config is done, with much more of the farm configuration being done inside MediaWiki itself, rather than in. So Wikimedia's config is essentially a set of PHP that bootstraps a config environment and then injects it into a MediaWiki run, which means that we don't have access to anything inside MediaWiki until after we've decided what wiki you're running for. And I think the idea with the farms configuration was actually so that you could have one system in place that would answer those questions. So it would make a determination at runtime inside MediaWiki. But as I said, I saw people were very excited about this, and there was a bunch of activity, but I haven't used it in practice. But it looks like it's a bit different.
Okay, awesome. I think we're out of time, but thank you so much. Yeah.
I just wanted to add one thing for Jeffrey's benefit, which is we played with this a little bit during the hackathon at MWCon. It's substantially similar to, like, it hasn't changed much since that date. So the stuff that we were doing then is really part of that.
Oh, okay, cool. Thanks.
Thanks, Indy.
Okay, well, thanks, James. So, more questions? That's it. Thank you. And Sam, of course. Thank you, Sam, as well. Okay, we are going to have a break. Thank you.